What if humans couldn't drink water for an entire week? Imagine waking up and reaching for a glass, only to find your tap runs dry. Rivers, lakes, and even bottled water are suddenly unavailable. At first, it feels like a minor inconvenience, but hours pass and your body begins to react in ways you might not expect. Your mouth feels parched, skin dries out, and headaches start to creep in. Your urine darkens, your energy fades, and your body begins an urgent internal fight to conserve every drop of fluid. Imagine trying to think clearly, move around, or even stay upright as your organs slowly start to struggle. The sun feels hotter, your breath comes in shallow gasps, and even simple tasks become exhausting. And this isn't just about discomfort. By day 3, major systems in your body are already under stress. Watch till the end. The reality of surviving without water will shock you, and it's far more dangerous than most people realize. I'm Harris, and you're watching What If Harris, where we explore human survival in extreme scenarios. Today, we're imagining a world where humans go an entire week without water. We'll see how the body responds hour by hour, what strategies could help, and what ultimately happens when this most basic necessity disappears. By the end, you'll understand just how critical water really is for survival. If humans couldn't drink water for a week, the effects on the body would be dramatic and immediate. Water is essential for nearly every process in our bodies. It keeps our cells hydrated, regulates temperature, supports digestion, and helps transport nutrients and oxygen. Without it, the body goes into survival mode almost instantly. Within hours, you'd start feeling thirsty, and your kidneys would begin conserving every drop of fluid by reducing urine output. Your blood volume starts to shrink, making your heart work harder to pump oxygen to organs and muscles. By the second day, dehydration begins to affect your brain. Concentration falters, reaction times slow, and mood swings or irritability set in. Your skin loses elasticity, and even minor cuts or injuries heal slower because there's less fluid to support cellular repair. Your mouth and throat dry out, making swallowing and speaking difficult. Body temperature regulation also becomes a problem. Without enough water, sweating decreases, which can lead to overheating in warm environments. After 3 to 4 days, the strain becomes life-threatening. Organs start to function less efficiently. The kidneys, which filter waste from the blood, begin to fail, leading to toxic buildup. Blood thickens, increasing the risk of clotting and putting extreme stress on the heart. Muscle cramps and dizziness become common as electrolytes drop, and even standing or walking can feel exhausting. The brain is now at serious risk. Prolonged dehydration can cause confusion, hallucinations, and eventually unconsciousness. Humans cannot survive without water for more than about 7 days under normal conditions. The exact timeline depends on temperature, activity level, and overall health, but the science is clear. Water is irreplaceable. Unlike food, the body has very limited reserves for hydration, and once cells start to collapse from lack of fluid, recovery becomes increasingly difficult. Understanding this baseline helps us see why water is so critical and why any scenario where it disappears is immediately life-threatening. Even in survival situations, strategies for rationing, finding hidden sources, or rehydrating safely become essential. Without them, the human body simply cannot endure the week. The first few hours without water may not feel life-threatening, but your body is already starting to react. Thirst is the first signal, a constant nagging reminder that your cells are losing fluid. Your mouth becomes dry, saliva decreases, and swallowing feels uncomfortable. Your kidneys immediately begin conserving water, producing darker, concentrated urine. Blood volume starts to drop slightly, which makes your heart work harder to pump oxygen and nutrients through the body. Even mild activity feels more tiring, and your muscles start signaling early signs of cramp and fatigue. By 12 to 24 hours, your brain begins to notice the shortage. Concentration falters, reaction time slows, and irritability or anxiety sets in. The hypothalamus, the part of the brain that regulates thirst, triggers stress hormones, raising your heart rate and constricting blood vessels to preserve fluid for vital organs. Skin starts losing elasticity, becoming dry and less able to regulate temperature efficiently. Sweating decreases, so if the environment is hot, your body struggles to cool itself, and overheating becomes a real risk. Between day 2 and day 3, the effects intensify. Blood thickens as plasma volume decreases, making circulation harder. Your heart has to work harder, increasing the risk of dizziness or fainting. Electrolytes like sodium and potassium drop, causing muscle cramps, tremors, and extreme fatigue. The brain begins to function less efficiently. Short-term memory problems, confusion, and headaches are common. Even the lungs feel the strain, as thickened blood makes oxygen transport slightly less efficient, leading to faster breathing and shortness of breath. By the 4th day, the body enters a critical survival mode. Organs like the kidneys start to fail under the strain of processing waste with insufficient fluid. Toxic byproducts build up in the bloodstream, worsening fatigue and nausea. The skin becomes dry, brittle, and prone to cracking. The sense of touch is dulled, and the mouth and eyes feel constantly irritated. Standing or walking requires concentrated effort, and even simple tasks feel exhausting. The body begins to prioritize blood flow to the brain and heart, leaving limbs and extremities less oxygenated, which can cause weakness and tingling. By day 5, cognitive functions are seriously impaired. Confusion, hallucinations, and difficulty forming coherent thoughts appear. Emotional responses fluctuate wildly. Panic, frustration, and despair are common. Heart rate is elevated. Blood pressure may drop suddenly when standing, and fainting becomes a risk. Internal temperature regulation is compromised, and if the environment is hot, the risk of heat stroke rises sharply. Between days 6 and 7, survival is at its limits. Dehydration affects every system. The brain, kidneys, heart, and muscles are all under extreme stress. Organs begin shutting down one by one. Electrolytes are dangerously low, and blood pressure is unstable. Without water, the body cannot remove toxins or regulate itself. At this point, even minimal activity can trigger collapse. Emotionally, the psychological strain is enormous. Anxiety, fear, and hopelessness combine with physical weakness, making survival as much a mental challenge as a physical one. If water is not found or rationed carefully, death becomes increasingly likely. A week without water pushes the human body beyond what it can endure. Survival depends on immediate access to fluid, minimal exertion, and protection from environmental extremes. This scenario shows how essential water is. It's not just about quenching thirst, it's about keeping every cell, every organ, and every thought alive. The body reacts, adapts briefly, but ultimately, water is the line between life and death. If humans couldn't drink water for a week, survival would be extremely difficult, but not entirely impossible, provided you take immediate and strategic action. The first step is protecting the body from further water loss. Staying out of the sun, avoiding heat, and minimizing physical activity are critical. Shelters that shield from heat and wind can dramatically reduce fluid loss through sweat. Clothing also plays a role. Light, loose layers protect skin while allowing some cooling, and covering the mouth and nose can reduce moisture loss from breathing. Finding alternative water sources becomes essential. Dew collection, condensation traps, or even extracting moisture from food can provide small amounts of hydration. In an emergency, some survival techniques involve purifying non-traditional water sources, like collecting rain or using solar stills to condense water from soil or plants. However, these methods only yield limited amounts and cannot fully replace drinking water. Technology can help, but with limits. Portable water filtration devices, chemical purifiers, and even small-scale desalination units could extend survival, but without an actual water source, they're only partially effective. Protective suits designed to recycle body moisture or reduce sweat loss could theoretically help, but these are experimental and not widely available. Human adaptation, like slowing metabolism, resting frequently, and conserving energy, is just as important as any gadget. What isn't possible is ignoring the body's need for water. You cannot survive a full week in normal conditions without some hydration. No amount of food can fully compensate, and extreme heat or exertion dramatically shortens survival time. Rescue or government intervention may be limited as infrastructure quickly becomes overwhelmed in widespread water shortages. Survival also depends on mental strategies. Panic accelerates dehydration through rapid breathing and stress hormones. Staying calm, rationing effort, and maintaining focus on water collection and shelter can make the difference between life and death. Communities that cooperate, share resources, and implement basic survival systems will fare far better than isolated individuals. Ultimately, a week without water would push the human body to its absolute limits. Survival is theoretically possible, but only through careful preparation, resourcefulness, and strict conservation of energy. Nature doesn't pause for humans, and this scenario shows just how dependent we are on water for every aspect of life, from brain function to blood circulation. It's a harsh reminder that even basic elements we take for granted are essential, and that survival requires both knowledge and respect for the limits of our own biology. A week without water is a scenario that forces us to confront just how dependent humans are on something we usually take for granted. Within days, our bodies falter, our minds struggle, and every action requires careful thought and energy. Survival isn't just about endurance, it's about preparation, resourcefulness, and cooperation. Even with the best strategies, the human body has limits, and without water, those limits are reached quickly. This reality check reminds us that life hinges on small, often invisible essentials. Clean water, stable shelter, and basic resources are more than conveniences, they're the foundation of survival. It also highlights something deeper, our fragility in the face of nature and the remarkable adaptation that has allowed humans to endure extreme conditions for millennia. Thinking about a week without water isn't meant to scare you, but to make you reflect on the value of resources we usually overlook. It's a reminder to prepare, to respect the systems that support life, and to appreciate every sip we take for granted. If this scenario made you pause and think about survival or the fragility of life, like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how you'd handle one of the most basic challenges a human could face.